more than 25,000 products ranging from dynamite to cellophane and all manner of plastics. But in the mid-30s, DuPont Chemicals patented processes to make nylon and plastics from oil and coal.
A resurgence of the hemp industry would seriously have threatened the emerging petrochemical industries, with their synthetic fibre nylon being invented in 1935.
Hearst was a big printer back during the 20s and 30s, and he had vast interest in timberland for paper pulp, which could be used as a result of a chemically intensive paper pulp process developed by DuPont and patented by DuPont. They made their fortunes with these chemical shipments for the paper pulp industry, and hemp represented a less chemically intensive way of manufacturing a higher grade paper. Consequently, DuPont saw it as an economic competitor.
William Randolph Hearst, the owner of the largest newspaper chain in the United States between the world wars, started publishing newspaper articles linking cannabis with violent crime. They renamed the plant marijuana to dissociate it from the hemp medicines, the hemp rope and fabric that Americans had been using profitably for generations. Many stories in his papers told of blacks or Mexicans using marijuana and being disrespectful or violent to whites, or trying to push their drug to innocent whites. The campaign succeeded in getting racist white organisations to support cannabis prohibition. Hearst and Harry Anslinger, the then director of the Bureau of Narcotics, managed to get marijuana made illegal in 1937, thus destroying the hemp industries. This timing is interesting. The alcohol prohibition had just ended, and the people who had enforced it needed new jobs. This may well be why Anslinger pushed so hard to get cannabis banned.
In Anslinger's words, if the hideous monster Frankenstein came face to face with the monster marijuana, he would drop dead of fright. Reefer Madness was one of the many movies made to whip up an anti-marijuana frenzy.
The sale of marijuana is even more difficult to detect and halt than the traffic in drugs such as opium, morphine, and heroin. More deadly even than these soul-destroying drugs is the menace of marijuana. Under the influence of the drug, he killed his entire family with an axe. Incurably insane, a condition caused by the drug marijuana to which he was addicted. It is recommended, Your Honor, that the defendant be placed in an institution for the criminally insane for the rest of his natural life.
The prohibitionist mentality was abhorred by our founding fathers and by Lincoln and by every other great leader in America. They never had the power to prohibit, but they soon gave themselves the power to tax. The laws which outlawed marijuana were not prohibitive criminal statutes, they were tax acts. The 1937 Marijuana Tax Act, where an ounce of marijuana was taxed at $200. It was selling on streets for $1.
At that time, congressmen voting on this piece of legislation were not aware that marijuana was hemp, cannabis hemp, that country had been using profitably for centuries. The hemp prohibition was initiated by American petrochemical companies in the 1930s to destroy the economic potential of hemp. It has nothing to do with the chemical effects of cannabis drugs or their perceived danger. It's a blatant case of industrial espionage to remove competition from evolving petrochemical substitutes for superior natural fibres. This was why the prohibition was brought in 1938, and this is why the prohibition is maintained.
Despite hemp being a major fibre crop in America and the world last century, mention of hemp has been erased from museums and textbooks. This display on the history of American textiles in Washington's Smithsonian Institute contains no mention of hemp. When asked why, museum curator Arkido replied, "Children don't need to know about hemp anymore, it confuses them." Similarly, in the National Textile Museum, there is no mention of hemp, either on display or in the library catalogue. Another example of the hemp cover-up was the attempted destruction of all traces of the US Department of Agriculture's film Hemp for Victory. This film, made in 1942, was used to encourage patriotic US farmers to grow hemp for the war effort. After 45 years of burial in government archives, it was rediscovered in 1989 by hemp activists.
In 1942, 14,000 acres of fiber hemp were harvested in the United States. The goal for 1943 is 300,000 acres. Thus, hemp, Cannabis sativa, the old standby cordage fiber, is staging a strong comeback. American hemp will go on duty again. Hemp for mooring ships, hemp for tow lines, hemp for tackle and gear, hemp for countless naval uses, both on ship and shore. Hemp for victory.
Straight after the war, however, the government once again abolished the hemp industry and eventually criminalised the plant.
100 years ago, the farmer produced all of the fiber, all of the medicine, all of the fuel, and all of the food that the society consumed. That's what farming is you raise those four basic categories, fiber, food, medicine, and fuel, and you sell them in the cities. They're the basic necessities of life. The money flows out of the cities back to the landowner and to the producer, where land is the means of production of wealth. It's been that way for thousands of years. Today, 100 years later, the farmer doesn't produce any fiber. If they do, it's cotton, which accounts for 50% of the pesticides and herbicides used in the agricultural sector. The farmer doesn't raise any medicine. It's all been monopolized by the pharmaceutical companies. The farmer doesn't raise any fuel. It's all been monopolized by the petrochemical companies. And if you go into a grocery store and look at the ingredients on the package, you'll find out how rapidly the farmer is being displaced from their heritage of food production. It's all been taken over by the synthetic manufacturers who, in producing these synthetic products, create the toxic waste and the hazardous byproducts with which we're having such a tough time dealing. And not only that, it concentrates wealth in the hands of fewer and fewer people all the time, because the means of production of wealth is no longer the land. It is now the factories and the shareholders and the people who own the controlling interest in those corporations. Does government have the right to tell man or woman that they cannot plant a seed in God's green earth and consume the green natural plant that comes up out of it? That seems such an inalienable right. That seems such a natural and basic way of communing with Mother Earth and with the natural cycle of things.
It really is only a matter of time before hemp returns to Australian industry and commerce. A lot of preliminary work has been done. We have literally thousands of hectares ready to be turned over to hemp cultivation. Factories to handle the downstream processing of the fibres are ready and waiting. The industry can develop very quickly once these foolish bureaucratic limitations are removed.
It is just such a simple and benign solution, and if we don't do it, I think we're going to lose just about everything that we hold dear.
Hemp could be and will be the greatest economic engine that we have seen probably in the history of the human race.
From deep within the earth, a voice is calling. The synthetic age is surely falling. Stop running from the gifts that are here for you. Stop running down your self-destructive way. It's time to turn and usher in the new. It's the dawn of the natural cycle. it's here to stay. It's the dawn of the natural cycle, and it's here to stay.